6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello out there, and welcome back to the Potato Ranch. I am Joe Raven, veteran gaming potato at your service. Today I would like to talk about tactical concepts which bear some consideration when it comes to military simulation, or milsim games. These will often vary based on the landscape, your role in your team, and the overall team makeup, but they are always handy to remember whenever possible. Before I get into the concepts, first it is important to define what I mean by military simulation. The core idea is working with limited resources at the unit level, so usually games which allow respawning or redeploying during a match do not quite fit the definition. While tactical considerations are very important in games like Battlefield and even to some extent Call of Duty, we tend to adopt a different mindset when dying simply means waiting for 15 seconds and dropping back in wherever we want. So World of Tanks, MechWarrior Online, Arma, Rainbow Six, and even that which I so detest, Counter-Strike, are much closer to realism. While to my understanding Arma does allow respawns, the maps are so large that it nearly always takes several minutes of coordination with a unit and travel in order to get back into the fight. So in this case, getting killed is a considerable detriment. Each team only has so many units to work with, and death usually means putting your team at a disadvantage. Ammo is not plentiful and usually cannot be restocked mid-match, and therefore every move must be thought out quickly in order to keep momentum against the enemy. And that is a great place to start momentum. When you attack, your enemy has three basic options. They can stand and fight, duck and take cover, or retreat. Cover is usually the best option because it minimizes incoming damage but still allows you the option to return fire or maneuver on the enemy. Staying in the open is generally not recommended, unless you have the advantage in numbers, firepower, and position. Retreat is risky because if you fail to coordinate covering fire you leave yourself or your team open to attack from the rear. Furthermore, leaving a position means allowing the enemy to take that position and advance. Depending on where it is in relation to the rest of the map, this could lead to severe disadvantage even if you avoid casualties in the retreat. From an attacker's standpoint, forcing a retreat is the desirable option, not only for the above reasons, but to allow you to keep the momentum. Once the enemy is moving, prevent them from finding cover and you can cause severe damage to both their strength and their morale. You also gain time for your team to maneuver on the enemy's flanks or prepare a new defensive position in case they recover and manage a counterattack. I've mentioned cover several times now, but it is important to know the difference between cover and concealment. Cover keeps you safe from some or all types of incoming attacks and usually hides you from view of the enemy, at least in part. Concealment, on the other hand, simply keeps you hidden from view. You can still be fired upon and as soon as you fire from your position you risk return fire and potentially catastrophic damage. While the cover in MechWarrior is usually indestructible, in other games such as Arma and Rainbow Six some weapons are capable of penetrating walls at a loss of velocity. The wall you're behind might feel like cover, but the enemy might have a bigger gun than you expect. Fire and maneuver is another core consideration. Like they say in the military, fire without movement is stupid, but movement without fire is suicide. If you need to move from one position to another, either to advance, retreat, or to flank the enemy, make sure you have someone watching your own flanks while you move, and make sure to cover your buddy's movement once you reach cover. This is especially important if movement incurs a penalty to your accuracy. I usually don't call simple maneuvers while I play MechWarrior, but if I'm not in a mech that works best alone I try to make sure to keep an eye on the flanks while I'm moving with the team. And if I can afford the ammo or heat I lay down preemptive fire on a position likely to have an enemy in wait if I know we don't have the element of surprise. Fire and maneuver is one of those concepts that is quick to die when redeploying is an option, but using it to your advantage in any case is crucial to achieving victory. Once you become familiar with a given map, you can begin identifying areas useful as choke points or ambush kill zones. Positioning and calling movement or coordinating tactics will allow you to determine where you wish to engage the enemy and how. The displayed match is a great example of this idea in action. In this desert map, there is an area with little cover known as Death Valley. I actually traversed this area during the match, but thankfully the enemy was not in a position to deal lethal damage from cover above the basin. There are several avenues of approach leading to the basin and parallel between it, which make for great choke points. However, because of how restrictive they are, they often become kill zones if too many people are pushing through at once. While we did not call movement too much to my recollection, we were generally careful to avoid getting bogged down inside one of the kill zones. By pushing up and out of one pass, I was able to pick up numerous enemies on sensors, allowing my team to see them on the map and picking advantageous positions. At one point I had to retreat, but was covered by an assault mech and a sniper, and the Mad Dog and I were able to cover each other's backs while we moved. By allowing the enemy to push into the now open valley, my team ended up taking the high ground and picking them apart. I think I'll wrap up on one more fundamental idea: range. I feel this one is especially important to me because it's one that I tend to forget to think about. Every weapon in every game has a limited range in which to accurately damage the enemy. It's especially easy to forget your maximum range if you are using a long-range weapon because it is quite easy to get into the mentality of if I see it, I can shoot it. There is no hard and fast rule for determining your ideal range. But generally staying at about 2/3 of your maximum range before damage starts to fall off allows you the most flexibility in terms of maneuvering and firing from cover. If you allow the enemy to get too close, you risk losing any advantage a long-range weapon would grant you, and in some cases can nullify your own damage. For example, the rockets I carried in my left arm have a minimum range of about 60 meters. Inside of that they don't harm and cannot damage an enemy. Some PPCs have a minimum range of 90 meters, and long-range missiles either deal reduced or no damage inside of 180 meters. If you decide to use a weapon with a restricted range bracket, it is usually a good idea to also carry something which can damage an enemy inside of your main weapon's dead zone. That way, you can avoid or mitigate the effect of being rushed into melee range even if you want to stay at distance. And that's where I will leave it for now. There are as many things to think of in terms of tactics as there are games in which to practice them, but just like my Big 10 rules for playing well, the concepts of range, cover, positioning, and maneuver are good to always keep in mind. You cannot build a grand monument without a strong foundation, just as you cannot develop deep strategies without a strong grasp of the fundamentals of tactics. As always, feel free to comment or ask any questions you have. With that, I will see you next time.